displayed in his life, and as a result of those qualities, he was able to make a difference in the lives of others. So today we look at our last three qualities, and if you looked at your cover of your worship folder, as Brenda is just doing, you know where we're going with this particular sermon this morning, because they're the new words that appear in the tree on the cover. About 2 weeks ago, Bonnie and I were channel surfing. Once in a while we watch TV. We don't watch an awful lot of TV, but once in a while. And we were channel surfing, and we came across the movie A Few Good Men. It was made in 1992. Excellent movie. And because we really liked that movie when we watched it when it came out new, we decided to watch it again. How many of you have seen that movie, A Few Good Men? Okay, quite a few of you have. A number of you haven't, though. If you haven't seen the movie, and a reminder for those of you who have seen the movie, the movie shows, it focuses on 3 JAG officers, military lawyers. And they're given the assignment of representing 2 Marines who are guilty of killing one of their fellow soldiers. Now, standing in the way of the truth is Colonel Nathan Jessup. He's the commanding officer for the 2 Marines being tried, as well as the Marine who died. Colonel Jessup has had a hand in the death of this soldier. And the JAG officers suspect this, but they can't prove it. And so their only hope is to get Jessup on the stand and have him kind of incriminate himself. Now, the soldier who died was to have been transferred off the base at 8 o'clock in the morning. And the colonel has testified to this, that he was going to transfer this soldier at 6 o'clock in the morning. But when he dies at about 4 o'clock in the morning, it's noted that there were no bags packed. And so the JAG officer is kind of focusing in on this point with the colonel. Okay, Colonel, you say the man was going to be transferred at 6 o'clock in the morning, but yet at 4 o'clock when he dies, his bags aren't packed. Isn't this strange? We're going to take a look at that scene.
Is this funny?
No, it's not. It's tragic.
Do you have an answer?
Absolutely. My answer is I don't have the first damn clue. Maybe he was an early riser and liked to pack in the morning. And maybe he didn't have any friends. I'm an educated man, but I'm afraid I can't speak intelligently about the travel habits of William Santiago. What I do know is that he was set to leave the base at 0600. Now, are these really the questions that I was called here to answer? Phone calls and footlockers? Please tell me that you have something more, Lieutenant. These 2 Marines are on trial for their lives. Please tell me that their lawyer hasn't pinned their hopes to a phone bill. Do you have any other questions for me, Counsel?
Lieutenant Cathy. Lieutenant, do you have anything further for this witness?
Thanks, Danny. I love Washington.
Excuse me. I may dismiss you.
I beg your pardon.
I'm not through with my examination. Sit down.
Colonel,
What's that?
I'd appreciate it if you would address me as Colonel or Sir. I believe I've earned it.
Defense counsel will address the witness as Colonel or Sir.
I don't know what the hell kind of unit you're on here.
The witness will address this court as Judge or Your Honor. I'm quite certain I will. Thank you, see.
showed you this scene here, and monitors will go off, because I was hoping you'd notice that smirk that was on the Colonel's face just before he started to talk and answer questions. And because that smirk is kind of a tip-off of something that I think, if you're familiar with the movie, was a part of the character of Colonel Nathan Jessup. And I think it also came through in the dialogue that you saw. Because if you watch the entire film, you know that Colonel Nathan Jessup is a very arrogant soldier. And I think some of that arrogance came through in that scene. He's arrogant. Now, I don't know about you, how you react when you're with someone who's arrogant, but I know how I react. And my reaction is, I just don't like it. And because I don't like arrogant people, I tend to kind of distance myself from them. And if you're like me, you probably do the same. Arrogance has a way of repelling people. But opposite of arrogance is humility. And if arrogant repels people, humble people tend to draw others to them. And that's a quality that we see displayed consistently with Jesus. Jesus walked with humility. And it comes through loud and clear in one of the stories that John tells us. You're familiar with this story. It takes place in the upper room. Jesus got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Then he asked, "You understand what I've done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightfully so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've set an example before you that you should do as I have done. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor his messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them." So Jesus washes his disciples' feet. And I'm sure the disciples were surprised that their master, and the one that they have deemed as being Lord, would do such a humble thing. But Jesus did that humble thing because he's trying to demonstrate that humility is a character trait that makes a difference in the lives of others. You see, Jesus knew that when you embrace humility, it has a way of opening your eyes to the hurts and needs of others. Please hear that. When you're a humble person, you're more sensitive to the hurts and needs of others. And you stop and logically think about that, and it makes sense. Because you see, if you're so puffed up with pride, if you're a Colonel Jessup there, arrogant, you don't see the hurts and needs of others. Because all you see is who? Yourself. That's all you see. Yourself. And so you're oblivious to the hurts and needs of others. And not only do you only see yourself, but you don't see God either. Because again, if you're so puffed up with pride, you don't even think there is a need for God, because the world revolves around you. So Jesus, in washing his disciples' feet, shows this humble nature that he displayed throughout his ministry, hoping to convey to the disciples the fact that they too need to embrace humility. Because as they embrace humility, they're more able to be sensitive to the needs and hurts of others. And when you're sensitive to the needs and hurts of others, that draws people to you, as it drew people to Jesus. And when the people come to you, because you're sensitive to their needs and hurts, you're able to make a difference. The great writer C.S. Lewis said that quote right there at the bottom. Let's read it together. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. See the difference? When we think of ourselves less and others more, people see that in us. They're drawn to us, giving us the opportunity to make a difference. Jesus was humble. But there's something else that stands out in Jesus, and that was noted by those who followed him as well as those who disliked him. And that is, Jesus was biblically literate. Time and time again, we see Jesus showing his biblical knowledge. You know, if you study the 4 Gospels and really dig in as to Jesus' knowledge of the Scriptures, you're amazed at how often he is talking about Scripture in the Old Testament and even quoting Scripture that has taken place long before him. One day, Jesus was visiting with the teachers of the law about resurrection. They were talking theology about resurrection, and in the course of that conversation, Jesus refers to a passage in the 3rd chapter of Exodus where Moses has this burning bush experience, and some words are said, and Jesus talks about those words as being evidence to support resurrection. And the Jewish leaders agreed with him. You're right, they said. You're right. And then after talking about resurrection, the conversation changes to the Messiah. And here again, Jesus quotes Scripture. He quotes from Psalm 110 about the Messiah. So here's 2 examples where Jesus definitely knew his Scripture and used it. Let me share with you that reference that Jesus makes about resurrection and then talking about the Messiah. But in the account of the burning bush, even Moses showed that the dead rise, said Jesus, for he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but the living, for in him all are alive. Some of the teachers of the law responded, well said, Jesus. And no one dared to ask him any more questions about resurrection. Then Jesus said to them, now here's where he's going to change the subject to the Messiah. How is it that they say the Christ is the son of David? David himself declares in the book of Psalms, and here Jesus quotes from the 110th Psalm, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. The dialogue then continues on, focusing about the Messiah. But here's just 2 examples where Jesus shows his familiarity with Scripture, quoting Scripture word for word. When Jesus goes to the temple and takes on the money changers there, remember that scene? Again, Jesus quotes Scripture.